Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, in the name of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the exalted Christ, in the name of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I'd like to greet you with the greetings of peace of Assalamu alaikum. And then in the Kemetic world, I can say Hotep. I am a person who is deep into Islam, of the Nation of Islam, and the teachings, and also into ancient Kemet. Ancient Kemet, ancient Egyptian is my hobby. I got into it is that after I read the autobiography of Malcolm X in 1967, while I was at a white prep school, he talked about our history. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught him, and he taught us, that the Nile Valley, if you want to see when the black man was God, was left of what he did, you can see in the Nile Valley. So I started studying the Nile Valley at the Schomburg Institute in 1969. I went there for 2 weeks to study, and I ran up on the pyramids, and I couldn't understand why you would spend 30 years to build a pyramid for a dead man. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that when we were gods of the planet, we did everything right and exact. So that didn't make any sense to me. And I've been studying that for a long time to understand why they built the pyramids and how they built it. And in the future series, we will talk about that. But back in September, I heard of, and I had a chance to view one of the episodes of a series documentary, supposedly, to solve the question of who killed Malcolm X. It's on Fusion TV now, which is just a smaller channel, you know, on this cable, that cable, not very big. But in January, it's supposed to be airing in Netflix, which it has a vast audience. So I say, now why are they bringing this up again? That takes me back to 1991 when they made the movie, started promoting the movie called Malcolm X. That came out in 1992, but it started in 1991. And they started to raise up Malcolm to defeat Farrakhan, because Mr. Farrakhan had resurrected the Nation of Islam, and he was going around the country talking about stop the killing amongst our youth, and he was getting wide audience appeal onto the black college campuses. And so they needed to stop him, but they had nobody who can compete with his oratory and his knowledge and his charisma, his power. So they decided to raise up a dead man, put words in his mouth, Malcolm X, to fight Farrakhan. And when they did that, I decided, no, I'm not going for that. Y'all not going to bring up Malcolm to fight Farrakhan. So I began to do some research, and I'm going to show you some of that research today. Because this is 28 years after they rose up Malcolm in terms of promoting Malcolm with the X paraphernalia, getting ready for the movie in 92, but in 91 is when they began the process. And here's 28 years later, 2019, which is also the 400 years after we were supposedly brought here in slavery, but actually we brought here 64 years before then, but it was 64 years of hidden history because they had to figure out a way to break us, because when they brought us here the first time, we killed them. So they had to take us down to the islands to break us and to bring actually our children, make us have children, and then use the children, make them slaves, and make them make their children slaves. Then they brought us over here in Jamestown, 1619, 400 years ago. So this is a very important year. So they go bring up Malcolm, and they keep bringing the brother up. So we are going to deal with him. This is not the end of our dealing with him and them, because the question is who are they to keep bringing him up? So today we're going to deal with tracking the brown germ. Malcolm X exposed the real dangers of the brown germ. Now, we're going to show you something that they did not intend to do by keep bringing Malcolm up, but they keep bringing him up, which is really the end of a 6,000-year story that must be told, because the story is to get rid of a problem, this brown germ, in the black man that causes us to rise and fall periodically, even before we took out of ourselves the white man. But the brown germ from which the white man is made is still there and causing trouble. And the white man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in 1997 that the white man has learned how to stimulate the brown germ in the black man, and through our weaknesses they control us. Now, this movie, a series of movies, Who Killed Malcolm X, on Fusion TV, starting September 23rd, 2019, but on Netflix it'll be on January 2020. So who killed Malcolm X? Now the question is why did they kill him? Who benefited then? Who benefits now by keep bringing him up? You know, who benefits? Why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep... They know who killed Malcolm, the government. But they want to blame this on the whole Nation of Islam. Now when President Kennedy, he was killed by a lone assassin, they say. His brother Robert Kennedy was killed by a lone assassin, they say. Martin Luther King was killed by a lone assassin, they say. But when they come to Malcolm, Malcolm X was killed by the Nation of Islam. How is it that everybody else was alone? There was no conspiracy. And yet we finding out, we know there was a conspiracy to kill Kennedy and Robert and also Martin Luther King. Government conspiracy. And probably the Mossad and Israel involved in all three. But when it comes to the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X being killed, the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm. Well, that Nation of Islam left when Wallace took over the Nation of Islam after his father left. He took down the Nation of Islam. The farm that I'm on right now as a farm manager, I was supposed to come here as a worker in 1976 when I got out of college. But instead, when I got out, all the equipment was sold and the farm was being lent out to somebody else, rented out. So that was the end of that journey for me. But now, you are going to come and accuse Farrakhan, the new Nation of Islam, that was started by Minister Farrakhan, all over again. He only used was the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that's what you don't want. You don't want the people to hear the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because that destroys the lies by which you rule the world. You got people under your mind control based on lies. You don't want the truth that will break that spell that you have on the people and keeping them in hell. So, you got to stop the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Minister Farrakhan started from scratch. No money. Nothing was left. They got rid of all of that. He had to raise the money to buy back Mosque Maryam. He had to raise the money to buy the palace, the National House. Anybody could have done that, but they didn't. Minister Farrakhan did, and established a new Nation of Islam. They couldn't stop him, and so they couldn't stop him, so they had to bring up something that he had already overcome before, because he was brought into New York right after Malcolm was killed. And the mosque, the temple, was firebombed on that Tuesday. Malcolm was killed on a Sunday. On a Tuesday, they firebombed the temple. So Mr. Farrakhan was brought in to straighten things out, and he rebuilt mosque temple number 7. It was much more bigger than it ever was. He had satellite temples in all the boroughs. He had 22 MUI schools. He had restaurants all over the place of believers in the Nation of Islam. He brought fish in, millions of pounds of fish selling in New York City. He brought 70,000 people to Rikers Island. Malcolm never did anything like that. Plus, he was a national spokesman for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he was on the radio all across the country. So the new generation didn't know anything about Malcolm. So here they go. They brought him up in 91, 28 years later, to a new generation. And now they're bringing him up again to another generation that a lot of them don't even know about the Million Man March, much less Malcolm X. So let's get down to this. This is not the end. This is just the beginning of us going on the offense. We're tired of playing defense against these so-called Jews. So let's get busy. All right. So, question. When is it permissible to put your spiritual father or mentor or sensei personal business out in the street? Because that's what Malcolm did. Question 2. Why did Malcolm go to the white press and the white courts to destroy his black teacher? As you look into these documentaries, supposed documentaries, you need to ask this question as you're looking at them. Why did Malcolm do that against his own sensei, the man who made him something out of nothing? Just a pimp, a hustler, a crook, and in jail, coming out, learning Islam in jail, and then he goes all over the world for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, made him a big man. Then he went against his teacher. Why? Question 3. After Malcolm's spirit of rebellion caused him to be disloyal to his leader and teacher, how could Malcolm expect loyalty from those who later claimed to follow him in rebellion? See, people who have a rebellious spirit love Malcolm because of Malcolm's rebellious spirit. He went against his teacher, and you don't want to follow nobody either. So you take on that spirit of Malcolm and give yourself an excuse for just being a renegade, a rebellious hypocrite, somebody who nobody can trust because your word is not bond. Then you use Malcolm as your excuse, but he's like fly paper to catch people like you before they get to us. Question 4. Out of the 7,000 Muslim believers in New York City, Temple number 7, why did only 100 to 150 leave to join Malcolm X when he left the NOI? See, they never tell you that in that documentary. They're not going to tell you that part, but there were 7,000 Muslim believers in New York City, Temple number 7, when Malcolm was there. Only 100 to 150 left with him. And when Mr. Farrakhan got in there, he like I said, he had 22 schools. He had a temple in every borough. Malcolm's home was firebombed on February 14th, 1965. Malcolm blamed the black Muslims. Malcolm witnessed the dress rehearsal of his own assassination on February 15th of 1965. Malcolm told James Shabazz on February 16, 1965, that I have the names of 5 black Muslims who have been assigned to kill me. Malcolm continued the check procedure practice that he was taught in the nation until February 21st, 1965, when he was killed. But before that time, he continued the check procedure. But yet he knew on February 16th that he was going to be assassinated. Because he told Brother James Shabazz, I have the names of 5 black Muslims who have been assigned to kill me. So he knew he was going to be assassinated, and yet he removed the check procedure. Question 5. Why did Malcolm make his security people remove the check procedure on the day of his assassination, February 21st, 1965, just 1 week after his house was firebombed? 6. Why did he unexpectedly and uncharacteristically call for his wife and children to be present at the Audubon Ballroom for his speech on February 21st, 1965? You knew you would be assassinated. Why are you going to bring your family there? If Malcolm had the names of his 5 assassins, why did he let 3 of them supposedly sit on the first row? If these were brothers from, 2 of the brothers they put in jail were from number 7, Temple number 7. Malcolm knew them. They were his lieutenants. And he allowed them to sit on the front row, and they still in the nation, and you know somebody gonna kill you, you got their names. But if they're the ones to kill you, you had their names, you knew them personally, then why did you let them sit on the front row? See, something ain't right here. All right. So, here, 40 years we have heard what about Malcolm? Would-be leaders use the hypocrisy of Malcolm to justify not following Milton Farrakhan. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X when I was in prep school in New Hampshire in January of 1967. The white man is a devil. Then again, maybe not. It took me 4 years, not 40, to get past Malcolm from 1961 to 1971 when I finally decided to join with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the voice of Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because I accepted in New York City at one of Minister Farrakhan's lectures at Temple Number 7. Now, here's something that you don't know. This is from John Henry Clark. You can go to AfricanLobe.net featuring Malcolm and John Henry Clark's work. And John Henry Clark, the historian who's a friend of Malcolm, said the Arabs and certain powerful groups within Islam really wanted Malcolm on their side. There was a serious attempt to persuade Malcolm to turn on Elijah Muhammad and establish a second Islamic group based on what they considered Orthodox Islam. They offered him $3.5 million. According to John Henry Clark, he turned it down. And we were walking down the street towards his car. This man had turned down $3.5 million, whacked me on the shoulder and said, "Swine eater, let me buy you a cup of coffee." This was before Malcolm defected away from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was offered $3.5 million. Supposedly he turned it down, according to John Henry Clark, but he was offered that to go against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, Mr. Farrakhan had a dream about Malcolm in 1985. Malcolm was killed in 1965. But Mr. Farrakhan had a dream in 1985, and this is what he told us. He says, "As I leave you, approximately 10 years ago, I had a dream about Brother Malcolm, a dream that was so real to me, I have only quoted it once in Detroit, Michigan. In this dream, Brother Malcolm X came to me. There was a hint of gray in his hair, which signified that he had aged, and it was about a time when he would have been 60 years old. This year, I believe he would have been 70. We're talking about 1985 here, when he gave this speech. He came to me and said to me, 'Brother Lewis, what went wrong?' Unquote. Because I had walked a ways in his shoes, I explained to him in the dream what I experienced in the nation, similar to his and what I believe went wrong. When I finished speaking with him, he said he was going to seek the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and make some attempt at reconciliation. My heart was filled with joy because I knew that with Malcolm by my side in the struggle for our people, I would be so greatly strengthened. When I awakened from the dream, I was troubled. I wanted to know why after years I would dream a dream like that and see him so real, having aged about 20 years from the last time I had seen him." So family, listen. We're talking about some deep stuff right here. Some spiritual stuff. And so I'm going to go over some histories to try to bring, and some teachings from another perspective to get you to understand some things from my perspective as to what keeps me juiced up. And now, it may not be that interesting to you, but hey, this is my video. Praise be to Allah. So let's go down. Malcolm X should be studied, in my opinion, to understand what happens to a man that has been given himself over to his weaker part, the brown germ. He should be studied. I used to be very upset with Malcolm, but now as I study in how he was controlled by his brown germ, his life is a tragedy. I feel sorry for my brother, but now we're going to use my brother against the people who used him. Oh, praise is due to Allah, and we're going to get into this thing. Okay, now, I mentioned this brown germ. In the movie on Malcolm X, they didn't talk about the brown germ. They didn't talk about the making of the white man. They just tried to make him an angry black man talking about the wrongs of what white folks had done to the black man. But they didn't teach you the science of who made the white man and why, which Malcolm taught very eloquently. It was in the autobiography and on many of his tapes, but they didn't put that in that movie. And here's why. Because the people who financed that movie did not want you to know who they are. Praise be to Allah. So, Yaqub's history. This is from Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Mr. Yaqub was seen by 23 scientists of the black nation over 15,000 years ago. They predicted that in the year 8,400, that was in our calendar year, before this world of white race, this man Yaqub would be born 20 miles from the present holy city Mecca, Arabia, and that at the time of his birth, the satisfaction and dissatisfaction of the people would be 70% satisfied, 30% dissatisfied. And that when this man is born, he will change civilization, the world, and produce a new race of people who could rule the original black nation for 6,000 years. From the 9,000th year to the 15,000th year, which is the 1914. So the grafting process started 6,600 years ago, and it took 600 years to make the white race. So the white race has 6,000 years to rule, but it took 600 years to make the white race out of the original black people. Now, the brown germ is a recessive and weak gene inside the DNA of the black man. Yaqub, and this is quoting from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Message to the Black Man again, learned from studying the germ of the black man under the microscope that there were two people in him, and that one was black and the other brown. Now, it's interesting that the Kemetic people believed in two people fighting within each person. One they represented as black and the other red. Now, I noticed that Malcolm was called red in jail. So we're dealing with a way of discerning something that was going on inside the human being. Mr. Farrakhan has stated that the white man has learned how to stimulate the brown germ within the black man. And I further said, and he uses that, our weaknesses against us. He said this in 1997 in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, this new idea put him to work. We're talking about Yaqub. This new idea put him to work, finding the necessary converts to begin grafting his new race of people. He began by teaching Islam with promises of luxury to those who would believe and follow him. So he taught Islam to what? Who were there? Black people. So there were black Muslims. As Mr. Yaqub continued to preach for converts, he told his people that he would make the others work for them. This promise came to pass. Naturally, there are always some people around who would like to have others do their work. Those are the ones who fell for Mr. Yaqub's teaching 100%. Now, this now is from the page 28 of Our Savior Has Arrived, also by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Quote, now since he has discovered this essence today, we are under the God, Allah, to do away with that very essence in us so that no other man can make another people who are different from us. This will never happen again. That is why you are taught that you will be reborn again physically. This rebirth is in order to get rid of that wicked material in the very essence of the sperm of the black man. This wicked material will not be in the black man for anyone to use after the removal of the present world and people. All praise is due to Allah. So we're talking about a surgery process. You just can't go inside the people, into the DNA, and define that portion that is a brown germ and snatch it out. It's all wrapped up in us. So it has to be done in a spiritual way and over time. But first it has to be recognized and it has to be put in check. So this is why we're tracking the brown germ, so we can recognize it in self. Because remember now, Yaqub did not take the brown germ out of all black people, he used the teaching of Islam and promises that he would make their brothers and sisters their slaves, that attracted a certain set of people. Now, who would be attracted to a teaching that will say, I'm going to show you how you can make your brothers do the work for you? I can teach you how to make them your slave. Why would you want to make somebody your slave? Because you must think that you are better. And we know that's Iblis. So what Yaqub did was just teach a teaching that attracted people who already had that inclination. And then out of that inclination, he built a whole race, a whole nother nation, a race out of that, and turned them white. So they nothing but the brown germ left in them, no more black. And they were obvious that they were different. And then let them loose on us. And perhaps we will learn. We don't like that. And when we learn that that is a part of us, then we will say, how can we get rid of that forever? Like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that one day that essence, that weak part of self will be removed, and there'll be no more up and down civilization, no more going up and coming back down failures. No, we're going to have continual progress forever after the removal of this world, this race, and the essence that this race was made out of, the brown germ. Now, oh boy, here we go. What's that? What's that? Osiris and Isis and Horus, the baby there, and here's Horus, Osiris, and Seth, weird looking stuff. Oh, they go there to idolatry stuff. They go there to idolatry stuff. I don't know about that. We can't. They idolatry. What are they talking about? Well, let's get into it. Osiris and Isis, his wife, they had a child named Horus. Now, Osiris and Isis invented civilization and agriculture. Now, when did they do that? Nobody knows, because these are stories that are told to talk about principles, to give an understanding of some things that are going on in nature and in ourselves. So nobody knows when these stories came about, but they were carried down from generation to generation, and we put them in different symbolisms. Unfortunately, the same way people worship Jesus, even though he was human, they say that he is half human and half God because he was fathered by a God and not a man. And so now you worship Jesus. But yet, when you say the Egyptian people worship these entities, these gods, you call them polytheists. You call them idolaters. Yes, they did fall into it when they lost the knowledge of what it was these represented and what was the lesson they supposed to learn so they can implement in their lives and in their nation and their civilization. Now, Seth, this weird looking creature, was the brother of Osiris and of Isis. Seth killed Osiris by putting him in a coffin, and they had a party. What happened was Osiris went around the world teaching civilization and agriculture. He left his wife on the throne. Seth tried to rape her and take the throne from Osiris, but she ran so fast that he couldn't catch up with her. So when Osiris came back, he and some other conspirators set up a party. And at the party, they said, who can get into this box? And Osiris here, got into the box, and then they nailed the box shut and sent him down a river and drowned him. They found his body, and they cut it up in the 14 different parts. Isis went around and found those parts, everything except the phalanx. And so you see the Isis as a bird over Osiris's penis. They got it scratched off here because you know how they got a penis sticking up there, and impregnated herself with the penis, but it wasn't a penis. It was actually, she made an obelisk. And they're in Rome, in front of the Peter's Cathedral, they have an obelisk that they stole from Egypt. On that obelisk was writings. What the Catholic Church scratched those off after they stole it, because they're trying to hide the knowledge that we had. So anyway, so she produced a son, and this son is represented by a hawk, a Heru, a Horus. Now, Set killed Osiris. Set killed Osiris when Osiris was 28. So, when in 1991, basketball star proposed to X-Cap at June 1991 press conference. So this was in the newspaper of Michael Jordan wearing the X-Cap. The image of Malcolm X was given life to fight Farrakhan, because this is talking about a movie that was coming out in 92, but it started in 91. And when they started this X-Cap, I happened to be into the t-shirt business, where I produced t-shirts and caps and sweatshirts. You know, I printed them, and I knew that the Jews were going to push this X thing, and everybody else was selling X paraphernalia. So I had to decide if I wanted to get involved with this. And I said, I don't know about that. I'm not going to be involved with that, which I know they're doing just to fight Farrakhan. I didn't join back up with Farrakhan yet. Okay? Because I was waiting to see. I didn't want to get hooked up on Farrakhan because of his voice. He has got that voice, which is his rod. That voice will capture you. Well, I didn't want to be captured by his voice. I want to make sure I understood what he was saying. I can analyze it for myself and not join or follow because of emotional content, but on mathematical content. Islam is mathematics, and mathematics is Islam. So, when I saw this 1991, this X-Cap, something just struck me. I said, look, check something out. Malcolm defected from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1963. Now, 1963 from 1991 is 28. I said, well, wait a minute. 28, Malcolm goes against Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and 28 years later, they raise up the image of Malcolm to fight Minister Farrakhan, who resurrected the Nation of Islam just using the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, while the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not here. I said, that sounds too much like the story of Isis, Osiris, Horus, and Set. It sounds too much like that story. So I said, let me see here. I said, okay, 1963 to 1991 was 28 years. But then I had remembered that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that his own brother, Khalat, had tried to kill him in 1935. And I said, wait a minute, 1935 to 1963 is 28 again. Another 28. So you go from here, 91 to 63 is 28. Then you go from 63 to 35 is 28. And then I said, I'm just curious. Let me just look up when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was born and when Malcolm was born, and the difference between the two is 28. So I said, whoa, something is going on here about some type of cycle. So you got a cycle of the black versus the cycle of the red. Okay, so now, 1965, that's when Malcolm was killed. February 21st, as a matter of fact, 1965. So from 1965 to 1993 was 28. So now I was torn here between 91 and 93. The movie came out in 92. Then Mr. Farrakhan told his ministers, don't say anything about it. I'll deal with it at Savior's Day of 93. Y'all don't do nothing. Now, I went to the outside of the movie house in Greensboro, North Carolina. I didn't go inside. I didn't want to see Malcolm to be killed again. But I stayed outside, and they had police waiting on the outside of the parking lot, as though they expected some problem, something to go down, you know, between those who love Malcolm and those who love Minister Farrakhan. But when the people came out, they just looked confused. They didn't look angry, they looked confused. So that didn't work, but they were confused. The same way I was confused after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, got to the end, and I didn't know if white folks was still with the devil or not. Under Wallace coming in saying that we not going to build a nation, you know, we just going to be good Muslims with the Arabs and all that type of stuff. You know, that was confusing too. And now this movie was confusing. So I said, wait a minute. I'm going to wait to see what they do exactly 28 years after the assassination. And what happened? Okay. What happened was the four wives of the messenger, the same day of February 21st, 1993, the four wives of the messenger was brought on stage. It's four wives of the messenger brought on stage, and they talked about Malcolm's jealousy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because one of those wives that they brought on stage was an ex-girlfriend of Malcolm before he married Betty. He married Betty instead of her, but she became a secretary of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and his wife, one of his wives, Malcolm was jealous. So there you got this whole story again. So let's go back up here. So here the movie comes out in 1992. Why did the producers of this movie give life to the image of Malcolm and then put words in his mouth? If you go into the Bible in Revelation 13 and 15, it says, and he had power to give life. And see, there was more than one beast in Revelation chapter 13. And he, that was a major beast, had power to give life to a minor beast. So he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. The image of the beast. That's the movie. Malcolm X. It's the image of Malcolm. It's not Malcolm. It's the image, and they're able to take the image, like Will Smith. They got a new movie out where they in fact use his image of him when he was young to make a whole movie and have that person say what they want and do what they want. Where they did this with using Denzel Washington as representing Malcolm, and then they put words in his mouth. They were different from the things that Malcolm taught. Now, in the movie, Malcolm had a vision of Elijah Muhammad visiting him in his jail cell. However, that is not what Malcolm said in the autobiography of Malcolm X. On page 192, and I quote, I would later come to believe that my prevision was of Master W.D. Farad, the Messiah, the one whom Elijah Muhammad said had appointed him, Elijah Muhammad, as his last messenger to the black people of North America. So in other words, Malcolm saw this man right here in his jail cell before he joined up with this man right here. Later on, he saw a picture of this man right here in the house of this man right here after he became a minister for this man right here. And when he saw the picture, he said, that's the man who visited me in my jail cell. Now, if you look at this man, Master W.D. Farad, he looks like a white Arab. We know he's mixed, but he looks like a white Arab. So then how could Malcolm be so surprised when he went to Arabia and other Islamic countries and saw white Arabs? He saw that man there before he saw that man there. So no, Malcolm was playing games. Why? Okay, now, Malcolm claimed that Elijah had lied to him about the existence of white Muslims until Malcolm saw them himself in Mecca in 1964. However, the FBI files show that Malcolm in July of 1959 went to Egypt, Mecca, Iran, Syria, and Ghana as Elijah Muhammad's ambassador. So you gonna tell me that he went to Mecca in 1959 and didn't see no white Muslims? No, he saw white Muslims in 1959. He saw them in 1964. He also went to Syria. He went to Egypt. He went to Iran. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Turkey is a whole nation of white Muslims. So Malcolm knew that Elijah Muhammad had not lied to him, but he also knew that the people didn't know that. how could Malcolm see white Muslims in 1964, but not in 1959 or 1952 when he claims that he saw this man right here? But they took that out of the movie, because then you would ask the same question. Wait a minute. If he said he saw this man here in 1952 in his jail cell, then why they gonna put him in place? Why the switch? Because they didn't want you to know that Malcolm knew that there were some white Muslims. Because Malcolm was playing a game after he left the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, trying to slide himself into the civil rights movement. Okay. The movie. Why was there no mention of Yaqub's history? See, Malcolm used to teach on Yaqub's history and the making of the white man, one of his favorite presentations or lectures. But they didn't put that in the movie. If you're trying to do a movie about somebody, why don't you put the whole story? Because you're hiding something, because the producers of the movie were white. Yes, Spike Lee was black, but he didn't have the money to do the movie. White Jews gave him the money to do the movie, and they didn't want Yaqub's history in there. They didn't want you to know. They could have, that's what we taught, that's what he taught, well, put it in the movie. People don't have to accept it, they can laugh at it, they can talk about it, but why are you going to try to hide it? Because you're trying to hide your identity. All praise due to Allah. So, Savior's Day, the four wives of the messenger came out on stage, and one of them talked specifically about Malcolm being jealous of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because he took her on as a wife after he had rejected her as being his because he chose another woman, another sister. Now, this was February 21st of 1993. I was driving up to Detroit on Wednesday, February 24th of 1993. I had asked the brothers and sisters in Greensboro to bring me back a tape of Savior's Day. Because remember, I had not joined back up with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So, but I got the tape when they got back, and as I was driving up to Michigan to sell t-shirts, I saw this up in the sky, in the evening sky, as the sun was going down. And what came up was the crescent and Venus, the planet Venus, in the perfect alignment of our star and crescent, in the right direction. In the east, it's flipped the other way, but this is our direction, because this is the new Islam after old Islam sets. So this here was what I saw, and this here only comes in alignment every 19 years. I'm not going to go into the importance of 19 at this time, but we know in Islam 19, Mother Tanetta brought this to our attention, the importance of the cycle of 19 years. So here's 19 years, and then we go back up to this 28-year thing. I said, okay, that don't happen very often. So that's when I joined back up with Mr. Farrakhan and saluted him and said, listen, brother, you the man, I'm ready to work for you. So today is who killed Malcolm X? Why? Who benefited then? Who benefits now by keeping and bringing him up? So this is just an introduction of a series that I'm going to do, and we also in the research group, we are studying these documentaries and movies that are coming out at this time to try to throw people off, because a new generation is coming. And they want to confuse that young generation like mine was confused until I got unconfused. And then the movie 1991, 92, people got confused, but a lot of people joined the nation after their confusion. Malcolm brought more people with the autobiography, and later with that movie, he brought more people to the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad than just about anybody. So now they're going to bring Malcolm up again, trying to throw confusion in there, and Seth is the god of confusion, trying to use Malcolm to confuse us. However, them doing that is exposing who they are, the so-called Jews, who are half this and half that. They're half original, they're half-breeds, they're mixed, and they're playing both sides. They want to get the black and the white to kill one another. They want America and China to blow each other up so they can rule both. And if they can't rule, they don't even mind dying if they can kill everybody. So this is the end of their time, the end of their rule. And now they are out to wipe everybody out if they cannot rule. And they cannot rule us once we get control of the weaker part of ourselves. So this is why, for me, the importance of understanding the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and see how the teachings of the Egyptians, the Kemetic people, bears witness. And I'm sorry, you people who think you understand the Kemetic teachings, you're learning it from the white man. It took me a long time to overcome the white man's ideologies and understanding of our society, our civilization, our science, over how he mislabeled the writings, the hieroglyphs, how he lied. And I'll go further and show you some of the examples of which I know he lied, because we put a picture up so you can see what the thing is, along with the words that they give you, the spelling of the word. Then they got the picture up so you see what it is. But they lie, you can see right there, that ain't what that is. And we left many stone buildings in the Nile Valley. And they're looking for what's called a Hall of Record, trying to cover up their history, hide eyes and cover up theirs. But Allah blessed us to see now in the Nile Valley the book that they've been looking for. But the book, the person who they've been worried about, is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He has a name that is written in Revelations that nobody understood. Nobody knew his name and the meaning of it. And he himself did not know the meaning of his name. But now he's learning the meaning of his name, and we must study this new attribute of God in the person of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So what we're offering to you in the Nation of Islam is eternal life, but not by you saying Jesus Christ to be your personal savior and then you're supposed to be some spooky place after you die. No. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has told us that if you want to live forever, then do something worthy of being in the mind of people forever. Jesus lives through the memory of Jesus, and we shall live through what we produce in God's will, as we bring forth a new nation who will be led eternally by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and it will never fall again. So whatever you do to help the building of that nation will be written down in history, and people will remember your name. And you vicariously can enjoy the benefits of the future of what you do that's going to benefit the future by knowing that your life means something. It's not vanity what we are doing. We are building something to make it better for humanity and eventually the whole universe. So we say all praise is due to Allah. But we got to deal with this Malcolm thing. My brother. We got to put my brother to rest. You keep using him, bringing him up to put in our chest some doubt, some suspicion. Well, now we are suspicious of you, and we're going to show you and the world who you really are. So thank you for listening to me. This is the beginning of the reconciliation of Malcolm with his teacher, hopefully, and a reconciliation of the two branches of wisdom of the Nation of Islam, and the Kemetic people's science and stories and prophecies, so that we can see that indeed, for me, to see that our people bear witness to the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So they was waiting on us to do this. They would here, if they were here, they would want us to follow Farrakhan. And me, personally, I'm with the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan. Assalamu alaikum, family.